Thank you very much, people, for joining today. Today, we are hosting the monthly event for the Salesforce admin group from Montevideo, Uruguay. Today, we're going to be hosting David Carnes, and we're going to talk about reports and dashboards. So for today, the first 5 minutes, we are going to be making some introductions. We are going to meet and greet David, and then we're going to start with today's session, which is do more with reports and dashboards. We are going to save 10 minutes for questions and answers. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the Zoom chat, and then we can get back to you. At the very end of our session, we are going to be sharing some news about community groups, and also it's going to be a raffle time because we are going to give away 3 certification vouchers to the people that are still live in the session. So quick round of presentation. I am Angelica Rufa. I am the leader of the admin group. I am also a co-founder at Modelit, and I've been leading the group for a year right now. We are going to share these slides, so if you want to reach out to me, you have all the information right there: Twitter, LinkedIn, and also the Trailhead profile. I also want to thank some awesome allies that I have. They are Barbara and Andrea. They are the leaders of the women in the group, and we work closely together, and we actually have hosted many events together. All their details are also there if you want to reach out to them. And for today, we're going to be featuring or hosting David, who's the chairman and chief evangelist at UpFocus and Salesforce MVP. So, David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So great to see everyone. My name is David Carnes. I've been working in the Salesforce community since 2005, and I started my company in 2006. So we're a consulting shop. Client number 1 was actually a relaunch of Salesforce in 2006. So you can imagine the platform was so simple then. There's really not much we could do with it. So it was funny that we got the business off the ground consulting in Salesforce when there really wasn't all that much you could do with the platform. But it's really been a pleasure to watch the platform just grow and expand and to have this reach worldwide. One thing I'll share from having spoken at events around the world is that the Ohana is very real, and I've been met with unbelievable kindness all over the planet, speaking in places like Australia and in Canada and in Europe, different places. So I have a team of 50. We work with SaaS companies on their revenue operations. So we just work with software companies. I guess one other sort of unusual detail is I used to teach for Salesforce. So 15 years ago, 14 years ago, 13 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that, I used to be parachuted into some of the biggest deployments on the planet. And at the time, that was like Cisco had 29,000 users with 9 Salesforce instances. And it was really just a cool experience because some of these companies that were massive companies, very global companies, they knew another system like Siebel really well. They just didn't know Salesforce. One company I worked with, Autodesk, had 60 people working on their Siebel instance and were rolling out Salesforce. And I went to train them. We actually traveled around the world to train their staff. But anyhow, well, such a pleasure to be with you today. Do you want to do more introductions, or should we get underway?
Yeah, actually, it's all yours.
Okay.
Feel free to share your screen and we can get started.
Great. All right. Okay, so this idea of doing more with reports and dashboards, I think a lot of us learn each of the different features. We learn about summary reports, we learn about joined reports, maybe we learn about historical trending, we learn to build dashboards, but we don't necessarily combine the features, and that's really where some of the special capabilities come from, combining things. So I want to talk a bit about that. We'll do things like talk about joined reports, but combine it with a cross-block formula to really just get that extra bit out of the joined report. So that'll be sort of a theme for today, combining things. But we'll start off with report and dashboard settings. It's an important thing if you're an admin within an organization. it's important to kind of keep up with, sometimes they're just checkboxes to turn on a feature so that you can take advantage of it. With each release in the last couple of years, pretty much each release, there's been a checkbox to turn on a beta feature. And if you want to use that beta feature, somebody has to go in and check the box. Similarly, we'll talk about permissions. And this seems like sort of a basic place to start, but I want to caution you that many of you within your companies, if you're a sysadmin, you have access to all 31 report and dashboard profile permissions, but your users may not have access to those permissions. So we'll spend some time talking about that, like how can we give out appropriate permissions to different groups of users. We'll then talk about row-level formulas and summary formulas. Row-level formulas is newer in the report capability. We'll just do kind of a simple example, but just a way to get more color onto our reports. We'll talk about summary formulas for a minute, and we'll do a couple of examples. I want to show how to create a win percentage. I also want to show two particular functions that I think a lot of us stay away from. One of them is PrevGroupVal, and then the other is PrevGroupVal, and they really allow you to do more analysis on your grouped data on a summary report. We'll spend a few minutes talking about joined reports. And as I mentioned, we'll try out a cross-block formula, and we'll use that cross-block formula to look at past win percentages and our open pipeline and do a projection of taking our past win ratio times our open pipeline amount and doing a projection. We'll shift gears into some dashboard topics. If you haven't played with lightning tables, they're the most powerful, cool thing that we can use on a dashboard. So I really encourage you to dig into lightning tables. They're very special. They don't behave like the other 10 types of components that we can put on a lightning dashboard. Similarly, we'll talk about filters on each dashboard in Lightning. Just like in Classic, you can have up to 3 filters. It's a really nice way of getting more out of your dashboards just to add a simple filter. Finally, we'll talk about embedded dashboards. And since you've gone and created something beautiful, let's go ahead and embed it into the homepage. And it's very, very simple to do that. Finally, we'll talk about some resources for just to continue learning. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts about the agenda? Is anybody in the wrong place? You thought we were going to do a cooking lesson or something? Okay, let's keep going. All right, so I mentioned report and dashboard settings. You know, each release, so we have 3 major releases each year. There are these checkboxes. So you can see one here, the auto add new custom fields to custom report type layouts. So this was introduced in the winter release last year. Salesforce has been on sort of a trend the last couple of years that they'll introduce a feature in beta, and then the next release, that feature will go GA, will become available in all systems. Well, this feature still isn't GA. I met with the report and dashboard team the other day, and they said they're planning on it being going GA, becoming generally available in the summer release. So we'll just take a look at how to turn that on. So if we go into setup in an org, so I've just clicked on setup, and I've scrolled down, I've expanded feature settings, analytics, reports and dashboards, and report and dashboard settings. And I did notice that in Spanish, the order of these is different, so that's fun. Must be fun for you guys jumping between languages. So if I choose this one here, report and dashboard settings, you can see on my screen that there are some checkboxes. One of the things I feel kind of strongly about is that it's time to hide the Salesforce Classic Report Builder. It's absolutely time. It is such a strange thing, this Classic Report Builder. It's not Lightning, it's not Classic. It's time to turn that off. So to turn that off for all users in the system, I can check this box. If somebody still wants to use Classic, they can go back to Classic and create a report in Classic. But this actually removes an unnecessary button on the Reports tab. Here's that feature that I mentioned that came out in the winter release, the auto add new custom fields to custom report type layouts. This is still technically a beta, but the feature is great. It works great. It is a good thing, especially if you are using custom report types in your system. Finally, every now and then they have sort of an opposite checkbox. This one hides the option to export a report in Excel. I don't know necessarily why I would want to do that specifically, because even if I check that box, they can still export it as a CSV file. So oddly, this one is a negative, so I'm going to leave that checkbox alone. So to save that, I just go ahead and click Save. Now these settings are updated for all users. While we're here, just to point out, there are a couple of other things that are worth learning about. One of them that I won't talk about today is historical trending. This is really valuable. This is, I think they should have called this the what changed since last week reporting feature. This is not a new feature. It's been out for probably 10 years. If I want to turn it on for opportunities, I literally just need to check a box and click Save. That it's an unusual feature in reporting. A lot of people never find it, but it's really nice to see a comparison of what was the value on my opportunity pipeline last week and what is it today and what changed, and show red or green. So I'll just leave this, for you to explore on your own. We also have links to the report types and then to another older trending feature called reporting snapshots. So those are some of the settings. I mentioned report and dashboard permissions. This is something I feel pretty passionate about. I was astounded. I was blown away when I realized that only 4 out of 31 possible report and dashboard permissions are set by default for the standard user profile. So if in your system, if you have cloned the standard user profile, and let's say you create a custom profile for your sales team, out of the box, they only get 4 of the possible report and dashboard permissions. Many of these are specific to Lightning, including the ability to subscribe to dashboards. So what that means is Salesforce created this great feature, the ability to subscribe to dashboards, but they did not give that permission by default. So your salesperson doesn't have access to that. I wrote a blog article, and I'll just show it to you quickly. And what I did was I thought up, for most companies, there are probably 5 groups of users. There are just regular end users, there are managers, there are people you think of as super users, and then there are these admins essentially. And then which of these 31 possible permissions would I suggest that a manager have, or would I suggest that a report and dashboard super user might have? I'll put this link into the chat. If you're not sure about the permissions in your system for a sales manager or for another end user, this might be worth looking at, and then looking at your own profiles. The ability to change dashboard colors, the ability to subscribe to dashboards, as I mentioned. Some of these things you think that they would be available, but they're not by default. So here's a screenshot here. Again, the ability to subscribe to dashboards in Lightning is not given by default. Okay, so I'll get off the soapbox and keep going. Were there any questions about settings or permissions before I move on?
I just have one, maybe not the smartest question ever. With historical reporting trends, I think that was the setting. Is that something that can cause, in an org where you have a lot of users, that could cause, I don't know, storage issues maybe?
Yes, and that is one consideration. So when you turn on the historical trending, you basically, it keeps up to 4 months. So the current month plus 3 prior months of changes. So there is a possible impact to your data storage. So I think it was it 2019 or was it 2020? Maybe it was 2019. Salesforce increased the base amount of storage in all orgs from 1 gigabyte to 10 gigabytes. So from about 500,000 records to about 5 million records. And hopefully that helps people feel better about that storage impact.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. All right, great. Why don't we keep going? So when Salesforce introduced Lightning, they took a few releases to start building out the Lightning report builder. And then about a couple of years ago, they gave us row level formulas. So this is a very nice thing to have with reporting. Before we had row level formulas, the way that we would do this kind of thing is we would go create a custom formula field on the underlying object. Now we don't need to do that anymore. We can just, on the report, any report writer can create a row level formula. So these allow us to apply formulas to individual records on the report. You can have at this time up to 1 row level formula per report. I don't know that that is ever going to change. Right now, we can have up to 1 of them. These work with a limited number of data types. So if you have a phone number or an email, it's not going to work with that unless you were to create a custom formula field that changes the data type into one of these data types, and then you could work with it on a report. But row level formulas just sort of, as they appear, just work with numbers, text, dates, date times, and pick list. In fact, when they introduced this, the first day I saw it, I realized that it didn't work with pick lists. And I tweeted out a note that was sort of an unpleasant. I'm like, this is stupid. Why wouldn't you have this work with pick lists? And I got a really nice note back from the product team saying, all right, David, what do you want? And I said, I want pick lists. And then by the next release, they had added pick lists, which was great. And it just gives us more range of what we can do with row level formulas. So these are great for aging. These are great for changing a data type. Every now and then you need to turn data on its side in order to be able to do something else. This is really nice to concatenate a couple pieces of information from different fields. You might also use it to flag anomalies. These can be used in grouping. These can be used in filters. These can also be used to support summary formulas. So row level formulas are really, really powerful. Even though we can't use them in a bucket column or a cross filter, these are still super powerful. Oh, that's great, George. Here's an example of one here where I'm just taking today and I'm subtracting the due date from today to determine an age. And the way that I've added that row level formula is just in the Lightning Report Builder on the report. To the right of the columns, just choose Add Row Level Formula, and this is the formula editor. What was nice when Salesforce introduced row level formulas to Lightning, they upgraded the formula editors for all of the types of formulas on reports. So for summary formulas and cross-block formulas as well. So this formula editor is pretty good. The one thing I want to point out about this formula editor is, like, for example, with the operators here, it only shows 7 operators. There are more operators you can use, and the same is true for functions. So even though a function may not be listed here, there are more functions that we can use within this formula editor. And I've sort of noticed over time, I'm like, boy, it'd be great if I could use this function, and sure enough, it works, even though it's not displayed as a choice. Okay. So let's look at a quick example of the row level formula in action. And I obviously had some fun with this one. So our support manager likes to see color in reporting. So guys, this is so easy to do. And we can just put in any kind of emoji into our reports. So if we go ahead and create a case report and we add a row level formula, and then we use the case function. So the case function is a really helpful thing, which allows us to extract the value of the priority field, or a pick list in this case, so any pick list, and then to compare the value of low in the priority. And we can have the cool guy with the cool smiley face with the shades on, medium, the green, and the high with the mad red face there. And the trick here is that an emoji is just like any other text. So you just choose your emoji and embed it within quotes. I learned the other day, I didn't realize this, that on a Mac, if you, Control, Command, and Spacebar will bring up the emoji editor, and you can choose from hundreds of emojis to put into your, so let's just take a look at this in action. So I have my report here. when you're running a report or when you've added a formula field, you can tell it's a formula because of the FX. You see the little FX to the left of the word emoji, and then you can see my emojis here. If I go into edit the report, you can see that I've added that row level formula here. If I go to the column pull down, the row level formula is grayed out because I can only have one on the report. Similarly, the summary formula is grayed out. It's grayed out for a different reason because there are no groupings. That is a prerequisite required in order to be able to do a row level formula. So if we just go look at my formula, so if I'm just adding this new, if I chose add row level formula, this appears. And we've got within this formula editor, we've got our list of fields over here on the left, and we can search them. We have an insert button. So if we select a field, we click insert and it drops it over. I'm a big fan of these buttons for inserting fields because oftentimes the underlying API name is different than what you think it is. A really nice example of that is for the opportunity stage field, which under the hood in the API is known as stage name. So I will always use the insert field button when I'm writing a formula. So I gave my formula a name. I chose the output type as text to have an emoji be the output. That's considered text. And then I wrote my simple little formula, which has a case statement, sorry, a case function, and then it's using the priority field and giving us these, giving us this output. When you're writing a formula, the validate button is super helpful. This is your friend. It will tell you if the syntax of your formula is correct. It will not necessarily know whether your formula is doing what you want it to do. However, it'll tell you if the grammar is good, okay, the syntax, as opposed to you still have to test it to make sure it works. So if I go back to, let's say I save that, I can look here, low, I have the sunglass emoji, high is the red, and so on. So it looks like it's working out okay. Has anybody used a row level formula this way before?
Never with emojis. I do use it, but never with emojis. This is so cool.
Yeah, it's really easy. It's an easy way to add color, and you can have a lobster, you can have a whale. There's all these, unusual people dancing, a bottle of wine, something like that. So there are some interesting emojis in there. All right, so great. So let's go to the next thing. All right, so summary formulas. These are older in Salesforce. They've been around for years and years. In fact, when I took the admin exam in 2008, there was a question on summary formulas. So that's at least how old they are. And these allow us to analyze grouped data. So once you've added your first grouping to a report, we now can add a summary formula. So as soon as I add that grouping, the summary formula wakes up. We have the ability to sum, min, max, average, or we can use a unique, create unique output with this as well. With summary formulas, we can have up to 5 of them per report. Typically, I'll have 1, maybe 2. Every now and then, I'll use all 5. The summary formulas cannot reference each other, so that's an important thing to note. The output of the summary formulas can absolutely be used in charts. They can be used in conditional formatting. They cannot, however, be referenced in a filter or a bucket. You can see here over on the right, I've got a screenshot where I'm creating a simple win ratio. And I'm taking the one sum, dividing it by the closed sum on a report, and then I can list out my sales reps by how strong they are. So Julie Chavez is the strongest sales rep. She seems to win everything. She has the golden touch. So if I were to go look in the system, we can go create this. I have a report started on opportunities. And this report, if we were to look at the filters real quick, my only filter on this particular one is just that they're closed. I do not want any open opportunities. So we're going to take closed 1 and divide it by all closed, which is a combination of won and lost to generate this ratio. So if I go into the report and I go to columns and I add a summary formula, and we'll call this win ratio. I'll have the output be percent. And then what I can do is I can scroll all the way down here and oops, I went too far. Sorry, we're gonna do the one sum. And I can use my operator button here, and we're gonna divide it by the closed sum. So this on its own is a pretty simple formula. I might even look to make it more interesting, but we'll leave it simple like this for now. And I will move the Zoom, all your faces out of the way on Zoom so I can get to my buttons. And here's the win ratio. Now keep in mind when you're working in the Lightning Report Builder that this is the preview pane. Please, please, please do not make business decisions based on the preview pane, okay? That's a bad idea. This is just a little bit of data. It's not anything close to what you want to run the business with. So I'm going to go ahead and run this report now, and we can see the actual data on the report. And what I might do, instead of having this be alphabetized by the opportunity owner's name, now that I've added this summary formula, I can actually sort it by the summary formula, and it's sorting ascending, and I'm going to go ahead and change that to sort descending, and we'll see our top salesperson is Julie. Has anybody created a formula like this before to do a win ratio? All right, great. So let's do one more slightly interesting example. Let's go a little deeper. Let's use the PrevGroupVal function. So this, I waited years and years before I finally tried this out. And I couldn't believe I waited so long, because it's really not as hard as I thought it was going to be, but it's super useful. So we can use something like this to do month over month calculations, or any kind of group to group. We want to compare one grouping on the report to another grouping on the report. So you can see here on the screenshot on the right, we have February 2019 and March 2019, and February was 7.9 million. And March was 11.5 million, and we can calculate what the change month to month was. So there is no value in the first month, because in that first grouping, because there's nothing to compare it to above it. But as soon as we get down to that second grouping, we can do the math, subtracting the 7.9 from the 11.5, and we yield the 3.5 over here. So to do that, we're just on the report, putting in this simple formula, which is taking the sum of the amount, and we're subtracting it by the previous sum of the amount, the previous grouping. Now we'll do another one that's similar, and the math is just a little more interesting to determine the percentage. And so I've got these two side by side, the month over month, or MOM, change in dollars or pesos, and we have the month over month change in percentage as well. So these both are being calculated by using this PrevGroupVal function. So let's just go take a look at it in action. So I've got that right here, and I also added sort of a colorful chart up at the top to show the month-to-month changes. So if I come down here, we can see these two columns that I've added, the summary formula for the month-over-month change, and the summary formula for the month-over-month percentage change. And so going from 8 million to 16 million is 100%, just over 100% change. So that looks like the math is correct. But if we go look at each of these individual formulas, the way that we created this, first was we added a grouping to the report. Once you add your first grouping, then you can add a column using a summary formula. So I've already added both of them here. So if we look at each one of them one by one, so this is the month over month dollar change, or the peso change. And here's my simple formula. So it's the amount, sum, and I'm saying subtract PrevGroupVal, amount, sum, comma, and then what is the grouping? The grouping that we're using is the close date. Now, if you're going to use a PrevGroupVal function for the first time you do this, you're going to get an error. There's going to be an error message, and it's going to make you very frustrated because it's not really clear what the error is telling you. What it's telling you when you go to validate so this one will come out fine because I've already done the other step. The other step is to go to display and set the specific group to that same close date. So even though we only have one grouping, it's still saying, hey, what grouping do you want to use? Salesforce should have just put it in automatically for us. There's only one grouping, but it's not clear. So this is where a lot of people give up, is they click the validate button, they get the error, and then there's no real clear way to understand where the error is coming from. It's coming from this display tab, and it's this row grouping. You have to specify which grouping is the one that's the PrevGroupVal that this formula is applying to. All right, so that's the month-over-month peso change. And if we do the same with the month-over-month percentage change, the formula is just a little more interesting. But the math makes sense. It's the amount minus the prior month's amount divided by the prior month's amount. And that's giving us our increase or our decrease in a percentage form month over month. Has anybody tried PrevGroupVal function before? Anybody had any luck with it? Okay, I know it feels complicated, but I want you to feel good that you can take advantage of this. It's very doable to take advantage of this. All right, I want to show you one more that's in the same sort of category, and it's using the PrevGroupVal function. These are really, PrevGroupVal and PrevGroupVal are super useful. This PrevGroupVal, basically, if we can take advantage of it in interesting ways. So in this case, I'm using a special report type. The special report type is just always there. It's called opportunity history. And if you start looking at this special report type, there are some fields that are a little unusual. They're system generated formulas essentially. And you can see one of them here, the from stage, that a stage change has occurred, the stage duration. There are some unusual fields that don't appear anywhere else except on this kind of report type. So if we create a new report on the opportunity history report type, we can take advantage of some of these things. And you know, sort of interesting to figure out, if we know that our deals, you know, for all the deals that didn't win, where did they die from in the sales process? So, you know, we might be losing deals at the qualification stage, or we might be losing them at proposal or negotiation. And that may be what we choose to train our sales team on the next time we do a sales kickoff. We might say, you know, if the team is terrible at negotiating or something. So it's sort of interesting analysis that we can do with this. And if we go one step deeper, if we use this PrevGroupVal, we can calculate values relative to a parent grouping. So again, this is all based on a report that you've created, and you've grouped the report, and now you want to compare groups to groups or groups to grand totals. So in this case, I'm comparing one particular group. What is its percentage of the grand total? So we can use this thing called grand summary. So this particular report, again, it's based on this opportunity history report type. And what we're looking at is, what was the last stage that an opportunity was at before it died? And then I want to add one extra little special thing, this summary formula that says, tell me, what's the ratio of each one of these? What's the percentage of each of the stages of the total 100% that that stage was the time of death, essentially? So if we go into our system, and I thought oh, you know what? It's in the other. I have another org open just to show you this. So what this analysis is showing us, so it's based on this opportunity history report, and I can see all the from stages. And look at this, 44% of our deals are dying at the proposal price quote stage. So isn't that interesting that we go to make a proposal and our deals die there? We don't even get to the negotiation stage. They're sort of dying. Maybe we want to do some training on this particular stage. So if we go look at how this was done, so basically I've created a report using this report type. I've grouped it on the special field that's available in this report type called from stage. And then I created a summary formula. And the summary formula is the percentage of deals dying from. So if I click on this, it's a really simple formula. It's just using that parent group val that I mentioned. It's basically saying, for a particular group, get the row count. Tell me how many rows there are in the qualified stage, and then divide it by the parent group stage. In this case, the parent is the grand summary. So we're saying of all the number of deals that have died, what number of them came from this stage, what number came from that stage, and so on. And it's basically returning a percentage. So this is 44%, this is 11%, this is 22%. If you weren't doing this, you could hover over and you can see the same number 22, but this is the way to see that as an actual percentage on a chart. All right, so I want to show you guys sort of where I came up with this. And, you know, we've all been living a different life for a little over a year, right? So life has been a little different. Our businesses suddenly took a hit about a year ago. And I used this exact analysis to determine what has changed before the virus and then after the virus. So here's what I did. So basically, I looked at where were our deals dying before the virus. And then as of, you know, maybe it was April 1st. I don't remember. It looks like it was April 1st. You know, was there a change to where deals died? Suddenly deals were dying much, much earlier in the sales process. And the way that I could highlight that was to actually create the same report twice, have one be before coronavirus, one since coronavirus, and then put it on a dashboard side by side. So it's kind of interesting what we can, you know, we can dig into with reporting this way. All right. Okay, I thought to mention a joined report as well. If you haven't played with joined reports, they're really, really nicely powerful. Joined reports can do most things that reports can do, such as we can add columns, we can have summary fields, filters, summary formulas. We can leverage standard and custom report types. We can have groupings, we can add charts. What a joined report lets us do is have up to 5 reports essentially on the same report. And the key is that you have some kind of a common element across them. So in this report here in the screenshot, I have 2 opportunity reports basically joined together on the same report. And my common element is industry. So the account industry, agriculture, and whatnot. So what I have here is won opportunities and the sum of the won opportunity in pesos. And then I have my win percentage. And then right next to it, I have a separate report block on open opportunities. And we'll do sort of an interesting example with this in a minute. But, you know, if you haven't played with joined reports, these are super, super powerful. Pretty much any report that you create, you can convert it into a joined report. And it's a very simple little conversion to do that. If I come back into my system here, and if I go into my report, this one is already a joined report, but the way that I switched it, so I created a report on opportunities, and then I went up to the top left corner and made it into a joined report. Now, a joined report allows you to add up to 4 more blocks. So this is like a little baby joined report. It only has 2 blocks. We could have up to 5 blocks on this report. So I could add more. But in this case, I thought to do 1 block, and I can relabel the blocks. I called this one ops, and I called this one open pipeline. And then when you add each block, literally when you go to add another block, it just says, hey, what report type do you want this other block to be on? So you could have one on opportunities that are one on opportunities that are open. You could have another one on cases, and maybe you have the common element across them be accounts, like the account name. So we can add more blocks. In this one, what I wanted to do was something kind of interesting, do another type of formula, which is a cross-block formula. So we can take values from over here multiply them by values in this block, and we can do math. And that's what I've done right here. I've taken last year's win rate in agriculture, and I'm multiplying it by this year's open pipeline, and I'm projecting my amount won. So this is kind of an interesting, I feel like it's sort of a little bit of an advanced use case for a joined report, but heck, you know, we're spending the time together, so why not try this out? So if I go into my second block, so my first block is the one ops. In my second block, if I were to come here and add a cross block summary formula, that's the one that's going to let me do the math across the blocks. So we could just have a summary formula in the block itself. That's what this one is here. But in this case, and you can't really tell that they're a little bit different, but if you choose the cross block one, literally you can do math across the blocks. So instead of choosing this now, I'll just show you the one that I built. And the syntax looks a little bit different. And the reason is that Salesforce is referring to the first block as B0. So it's using array terms. So the first element in an array is element 0. So B0 is that first block. It's saying the one sum of B0 divided by the closed sum of B0. So that's that win ratio essentially. And we're multiplying it by the amount of block 1, the sum of the amount of block 1. And so when we go back and look at that, that's what this is here. It's just multiplying this win ratio times the amount to give us this number. Has anybody had any success with cross-block formulas? Anybody inspired to try? Okay. All right. All right. So so I did mention that we were going to talk about dashboards for a bit. Lightning tables, these are very, very special. We've had tables iterated a couple times in Classic. We had sort of an in-between type of table, and then finally they introduced the lightning tables in Lightning. They're special for a couple of reasons. Unlike the other 10 types of components we can put on a dashboard, a lightning table is based not on the report itself, but it's based on the underlying report type. So if you create a report that has 5 columns on it, normally when you add that report to the dashboard, you can only use those 5 columns. But if you create a lightning table, if you add a lightning table to a dashboard, you have access to all the fields. It could be 1,000 fields that are on that underlying report type. So that's one big change that's different with this. We can display individual records, or we can do groupings. We can have up to 10 columns wide. We can display up to 200 rows tall. We can add a subtotal. We can do conditional highlighting, as you can see in the screenshot. We can also use something that allows us to control the max number displayed. So this one here is listed as top 7 industries by open pipe amount. And basically we just sorted these descending by the amount, and then I used the max group display to only show 7 of them. So lightning tables are very, very special. We'll just take a quick peek at a lightning table. So I'm just looking at a somewhat colorful dashboard here. And if I were to go into this dashboard and edit it, and you know what, I'm going to, yeah, I think this is fine. We'll just go edit this one. And you can see that this lightning table is sort of blah. It only has, it has a list of records here. If I come in and click on the pencil, that's the wrong pencil. Sorry, click on this pencil. Okay, so now I can see I'm editing the component here, and the lightning table is this bottom right one of the 11 types of components we can put on a dashboard. We can add groupings if we want. So if I want to group this by country, such as billing country, I could go ahead and do that. We can add measure columns if we want. So we could say, what's the sum for each country, the average, the max, the min. that kind of thing. We can also show the record count. So now I'm going to add a whole bunch more columns here. With most of the components on dashboards, you can actually sort multiple times. So you're not limited to just one sort. In this case, it looks like I am limited to just one sort. But perhaps if I added another grouping, I could do a second sort. So instead of sorting by billing country, maybe I want to sort it by which country has the highest amount of open opportunities. Now, you have a few other controls as well, just like on the other dashboard components. We can choose shorten number, which is default, or we can show the full number. We can show the total, the subtotal. We can add conditional highlighting. We can control the decimal places if we don't want to show decimals. You could make this a top 10 country list if you just put in 10 countries displayed. Actually, why don't I go ahead and do that? You can change the title, subtitle, etc. So when I go ahead and apply this change, I'm going to want to do one other thing. So this is all jammed into this component. Anytime you're working with components, if you, if it looks jammed in, there's really no reason that you just might not make that a little bit bigger. For example, this one here, there's so much extra unused space here. I could actually just make this one a little bit more narrow. The dashboard environment's all drag and drop in Lightning, which is nice. And it looks like this is fitting in a little more nicely into here. So there's a lot of things we can do with these Lightning tables. I encourage you to take advantage of them. One concern about the Lightning tables, if they are not refreshed for 7 days, the next time you look at them, it'll just be blank. Don't panic, just refresh the dashboard and the data will be filled back in. All right, it's Lightning tables. Let's spend a minute talking about filters. This is such a powerful feature. I waited years before I used it. I'm kind of embarrassed about how long I spent not using this feature. We can have up to 3 of them on a single dashboard, and they allow us to drill into data in interesting ways. We can filter on pick lists, lookups, checkboxes, text, number, date time fields. So there's a whole number of different data types that we can use. You just want to pick something that is common across the different elements, the different components on your dashboard. So back on my dashboard here, I have a couple of them already created. Let's figure out where I went. Okay, so I have a couple of them already created here. So I have one on the billing country, and I just put in a couple of countries. Within a single dashboard filter, you can have up to 50 items. Now, interestingly, if you wanted more than 50 countries, because believe it or not, there are more than 50 countries, of course. So if you wanted more than 50 countries, you could actually have a second filter on the same field. So if you needed to have a longer list than 50, okay, but by selecting one of these, like the country Canada, basically it just redraws the dashboard filtered for that one filter. Now, interestingly, I have a second filter here, and this one's on industry. You know what I'm going to do? Let's actually delete that filter and let's recreate it just so we can see the process of creating it. So let's say I didn't have a filter on industry and I want to add one. It's very, very simple to add a filter. Literally, you create your dashboard, start adding things to it. And then when you're ready, go ahead and click the plus filter button to the right of the component. And let's just choose the industry field. Now we can add up to 50 values that we want somebody to filter by. So I'm going to go ahead and add a first value on agriculture, and I can literally just check it, click apply, and now I can add another one. I'll add it on banking. Great, add another one. Now this next one, I might want to have a few things together like biotechnology and chemicals. And maybe we have a name for this. We call this, biochem or something like that. Okay, so you can actually have multiple items grouped together on the same, like Australia and New Zealand. They're both lovely countries. A lot of times we think of Australia and New Zealand as sort of a unit, even though they don't think of themselves that way. We might put, for a billing country, put both of them together, perhaps to save one row. Please don't tell any of my friends in Australia and New Zealand that I said that. Okay, so I've just added a couple of them here, and watch right away when I save my dashboard and click done, I can use that right away And a filter can filter a filter, right? So that's a mouthful. But Canada, this dashboard is now filtered twice, by Canada and by agriculture. So it's the intersection. Now, before we move on from this topic, I just want to point out that we can also filter close dates. This is a really nice way to add extra value to your dashboards, that you can have a close date filter, and you can use relative dates and allow your sales leader, when she logs into the system, she can see all opportunities that have a close date this month, next quarter, etc. Okay, I find that really powerful. All right, the last thing I want to share is, once you've built a beautiful dashboard, why not embed it somewhere? We can embed dashboards into home pages and also into app pages, and it's very, very simple to do so. Literally, if you go into the Lightning App Builder and you drag this, the dashboard component onto your home page, it will actually show you the last dashboard you looked at. When you click on that, you can select which one you want to display. And I'll just show you what it looks like here. If I go to my home tab, I have a dashboard here called My Team's Sales, and it's not showing very much data. I'm going to change the user. So this is a dynamic dashboard. Where did Julie go? Oh no. Oh, that's too funny. Where did my users go? All right, I don't know how I broke that. I broke it somehow. Anyway, we can embed the dashboard. It's very straightforward to embed a dashboard. If we go under Setup, Lightning App Builder, if we go modify the home page, and then literally we go to the dashboard component, just drag it. In fact, you can have multiple dashboards on the same home page, one on top of the other, so no problem. I probably wouldn't put the same one, so maybe I'll go pick another one like that dashboard filters, and all I have to do is save it, and now it's live. So if I go back, I've literally moved quickly there, but I just added another dashboard component. Now I have 2 dashboards on the home page. And the last thing I'll say is, those filters that we added, those all work. All these buttons work on the dashboards when you embed them into pages. So it's very powerful. You can refresh, you can subscribe, and so on. All right, so we talked about a number of things today. We talked about report and dashboard settings, report and dashboard permissions, row level formulas, summary formulas, joined reports. We talked about some dashboard stuff. I want to just talk about a couple of last topics that I think would be useful. So George, I guess, followed me from yesterday. George is in the United States. I host twice each month a sort of a everybody welcome group to study reports and dashboards. It's called Dashboard Dojo. So I started this last year. It's been a lot of fun. We meet twice a month. So the last 3 sessions have been on formulas, and on the Dashboard Dojo website, on the resources page, we have the recordings available. In April, we're going to do report types, where we'll do 2 sessions. And what I try to do is have at least every other session be a hands-on, where you get to try what we're doing to build it out. All right, so that's Dashboard Dojo. There's a blog that I really like. These 2 gentlemen, Aaron Creer and Evan Ponter, they've both traveled the world to speak at Salesforce events. They started a blog probably a little over a year ago. It's called ReportForce.blog. So literally, if you open a browser and go to ReportForce.blog, they do some really nice thinking about reports and dashboards. So I really like them as well. They might be a nice guest for you as well for a future event. The last thing I'll say is the way to get good at this is to play. This particular dashboard I've shown at events around the world. In fact, we were just playing with the same dashboard. There's a secret in this dashboard that it's hard to catch. It's actually the same report over and over and over. So I took one report, I created a dashboard, and I tried to think of all these different ways to visualize the data. So it's one report used over and over and over. And some of these things look terrible, but some of them look kind of nice. And the way to learn is to just play like this. Take one report, try it one way, try a component another way, try another component, and then look across. There's no reason you can't use the same report a couple of different ways on a dashboard. All right. Thank you for listening. Love to address any questions that you guys might have. This is my Twitter handle. I try to tweet about reports and dashboards each day. If you're on Twitter, just David P. Carnes 3.
Is there any question, guys? Maybe experiences you want to share with any of the features that David talked about? We have a question from Nicholas. Nicholas, do you want to go?
Yep. Hello, guys. Thanks for inviting me. This is my first meet in the admin group. I wanted to ask to David. Thank you for the presentation, David. That was really awesome. There is a way to access in a report when a user selected dates, select filter by dates. There is a way to access to that variables from the formula.
So I just didn't understand the last bit of what you said. So when you're filtering by dates to have a formula,
is there a way to access that values from the formulas?
That's a really good question. So I think the way to, and when you were saying filtering a dashboard specifically, so there are some limitations on filtering a dashboard about the data types. I will just share my screen again, and we'll just look at one quick thing. So back a couple of slides, the dashboard filters. So they do support date fields and date time fields. So my machine went to sleep, of course. So what we know is, if we just think about it a little differently, we might think about it as either using a custom formula field to create the date output that you want, or using a row level formula on your report, again, to create the date output that you want. And I know that you can use the output of a row level formula to filter a dashboard, because somebody asked the question on one of the communities recently, and I thought, oh, I'll try that out. I don't know the answer. And sure enough, you could. So I guess I want to make sure that I'm answering your question well, Nicholas. You can use a row level formula to create the date that you want, and then use that on your filter.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sure. What a great painting behind you, the Gustav Klimt. That's great. Anyone else have a question? Does anybody have anything they might want to try with reporting? Anyone inspired to try something?
Those what's the name? PrevGroupVals?
Yes.
I'm gonna try them for sure. I have to create these dashboards and reports for next week, and the user actually requested for something that I think might fall right into trying out that new feature that I just learned
good.
today.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
Yes, and I was trying to set up a report similar to the one that you show to know where deals are getting lost. So I will actually listen to that part of the presentation, because I have to work on that next week too.
Oh, okay, great. Yep. And that report type is a special report type, opportunity history. There are a couple of report types that have similar names. There's one called opportunity trends. If you've turned on opportunity historical trending, that has another similar name, but it's just called opportunity history. So unfortunately, they made the names very similar. But that's the one that captures the from stage.
Thanks for the tip. Any other experience or question for David?
Hi. What I loved was the button of report in Classic is going to disappear, because for me, visually, it always seems too annoying. So all the clients asking me for what is this, or why is 2 buttons to create a report if we are aligning, and I always like I don't know. But I'm glad that that button can disappear finally.
Yes, yeah, I'm really glad too. I think Salesforce should just make it go away on its own, but it'll probably take them another 5 years to remove that button. So I'm glad that's helpful.
Okay, guys, is there anything else you want to share with us or ask David? No? Okay, David, any final words?
I'm so excited for you all to try to get more value out of the reporting. I guess the last thing I'll say is that Salesforce reports and dashboards, they can't do everything. I spend a lot of time talking to CFOs, trying to encourage them to buy a proper BI tool. So whether it's Tableau, there are many of them out there. There's one called Domo. There's a lot of nice reporting tools that are more powerful, even Tableau CRM. And the key thing is that they can report across systems and they have more visualization options. And that reality is limiting the progress of reports and dashboards. So, you know, if you can't do something with reports and dashboards, you might be on that outer edge of what's possible. And just keep in mind that many companies will invest in a much more powerful type of reporting tool, and that they are out there and we can do beautiful things with those. So sometimes we try to do too much with reports and dashboards, and it's just not meant to do those things.
Yeah, very true. Well, David, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. I think each one of us have had this weird experience with reports, but today you explained most of the features and concepts so nicely that I think we're gonna be trying many things in the future weeks. So thank you so much for sharing everything with us.
Sure, my pleasure. Good luck, everyone.
Before wrapping up, we are gonna be giving away 3 certification vouchers for you guys. So I wanna be respectful of your time. So I will be sharing my screen really quick, and we are gonna start the raffle, okay? I listed all the names. I think a few people just had to leave the session because they had another meeting. So what I'm going to do, if they win, I am gonna reach out to them. So let's just get started. Spin the wheel and let's find out who is our first winner.
I've never seen this before. This is cool.
Okay, Sarah.
Nice. Thank you.
Congratulations. Sarah, please, can you select me your email so I can send you the details to redeem your voucher?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
I will remove you from the list, and our second winner is, maybe we should like have some music here. Rodrigo, congratulations.
Woohoo.
Okay, and our third winner. I have to practice and put more emotion into this. All right, Facundo, are you still with us?
Yes, cool. Thank you.
All right, so guys, I will be sending the information to redeem the voucher over the weekend. You have a deadline July 14th, so ensure you fill in the form before that date, okay?
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Please send me your email address so I can share the details with you. All right, well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. David, thank you so much. I think you were a huge inspiration for each of us, and who knows, we will be more than happy to host you again in the future.
Well, I have to come in person.
For sure.
It's been too long, so I look forward to meeting all of you.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a nice end of your day and take care.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.